Hi, everyone. This is Jacqui Cooper with JCooperTravels. And today I have a friend and a guest on who actually has been doing some travel. So we're going to be talking about a really fun trip in a quick second. For those that are new to JCooperTravels, I want to just share with you a little bit about my journey and how the talk show started. I'm a certified travel consultant, but I also do a lot of other projects, and I personally love to travel, and I've have traveled many places. When COVID happened, I rebranded J Cooper Travel, so it's more about how do we travel in life, and also how do we, travel within ourselves. So it's, both our personal journey, it's our careers, it's our family, it's, how do we do physical, wellness, mental health, everything combined. So for me, traveling is a way that I actually, get re-energized, and meeting new people and having new experiences. And I think today is so much fun because today is all going to be talk about travel. So anyway, I want to welcome Chantal on, and she actually is a global traveler. She's based here in the United States, but she actually comes from a different part of the world. And I'm going to have her introduce herself. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. So, my name is Chantal Jaeger. I am an avid traveler. I was born and raised in South Africa. Traveling has been a part of my family's life from the time I was a tiny tot all the way up to now. And recently, my husband and I, given with COVID, we couldn't do international travel as much as we really wanted to. At the time when we were looking to travel, the idea was to go back to South Africa to go visit my family, but we had to pivot that, and we stayed stateside, and we did a whole road trip across the West Coast, which was phenomenal. It was amazing. We started in the Grand Canyon and worked our way all the way up to Yellowstone.
So I know that I helped you a little bit on this. And I want to mention to everyone who's listening that even though I'm a certified travel consultant, you can use a travel agent in many different ways. So a travel agent can help you with getting your travel insurance. They can help you with finding, travel air rates or even hotels, but they can consult with you in the whole picture, or even in little small parts of it. And that's what I did with Chantal and our husband. We had weekly meetings, thereabouts. We were talking about the trip in different pieces, and what parts to think about first, what parts to think about in between. And there were some things that I booked, there's some things that she booked. Again, you can be creative with using any of your resources, because sometimes I know that the rates that I might offer might not be the best. So you really, I'm open to, and other travel agents are open to being creative with how do we support and guide you. So where did you fly out of first, for those that are listening?
Yeah, so we flew from San Francisco into Flagstaff, Arizona. The reason why we flew into Flagstaff, Arizona versus a closer, like Las Vegas, for example, is because we really wanted to start in Arizona, and our rental car was super easy to pick up from Flagstaff Airport. It also allowed us about a 2-hour drive into the Grand Canyon. So our goal when planning this trip, and we worked with Jacqui on this really closely, was we just wanted to be able to book the rental car, the air flights, and the places we were staying. All activities were off the table because we wanted the freedom to decide and switch what we wanted to do while we were there, which actually allowed for a lot of off the beaten path adventures too that we had.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. And that's a style of travel that I do often. When I went to Portugal with my daughter, I booked the air. I booked a hotel going in and a hotel going out, but I did not book anything in between. And when I was there, I decided with her and her friend, because we were using a camper van, but we weren't sleeping in the camper van. We decided, okay, what city are we going to next? And then we booked the travel, the hotel there. So if you're comfortable with not knowing where you're going to be next, sometimes that gives you a different type of adventure, which actually creates a very rich experience. So when I've been to the Grand Canyon, I absolutely love the vista and the sights. This was your first time, wasn't it?
Very first time for both my husband and I.
So when you drove up there and you saw the beautiful expanse in front of you, how did you feel?
It was breathtaking, but I also feel like our trip, we started at the Grand Canyon, which was like a teaser.
Yeah.
And us ending at Yellowstone was just, it was the highlight of our trip. Yeah, like, so when we arrived in Flagstaff, we arrived around noon. And then driving to the Grand Canyon, we saw a sign that said Arizona. It's just outside of Flagstaff. It's really cool. If you haven't been, I'll plug them here. It's a mini 3-mile safari ride where you can see bears and bison and wolves up close and personal, which we were like, we see the sign, we have time to kill, we might as well just detour. And it was so worth it.
Yeah. And I've been to Flagstaff. I haven't gone on that tour because we were going a different direction, but definitely, that's the beauty of traveling on the fly, is when you see a sign, you can stop and you can enjoy and explore. So where'd you go next?
So the day one, we just drove into Altabar Hotel is where we wanted to stay. I did extensive research on the Grand Canyon South Rim to determine where's the best place to stay. And because we were camping in Yellowstone all the way at the end, we didn't want to camp in Grand Canyon or Zion National Park when we went there, which I'll touch on later. We spent 5 days in the Grand Canyon. Now, we did not hike the Grand Canyon. Both my husband and I are not fit quite at that level, but we did a lot. So the first day after we arrived, so like day 2, essentially, we toured the Grand Canyon and we walked around the South Rim. And then we went to the Petrified Forest, which, that was beautiful. It was also very interesting because the weather system, because it's monsoon season, it reminded me so much of South Africa's summer, where it's super, super hot during the day and then it storms during the night. So I was in my element. I loved it. So we went to the Painted Desert, Petrified Forest for the day. My bucket list item was always to drive on Route 66.
Yes.
And going through Flagstaff, I didn't realize how much of Route 66 went through Arizona. So we were hopping on and off and going through the Kaobab forest as well. I saw a snake on the road. It was great. So I love wildlife. We saw wildlife in the Grand Canyon, mostly it was the mule deer and elk that we saw, which was pretty cool. And then we also ended up going on a helicopter ride. So that was one of our scheduled activities that we wanted to do when we were there. That was breathtaking.
I bet it was. I know I did stay on the ridge, and to be able to look out at night, and then also, get up in the morning, when the sun was rising and everything, the change of colors across the stones, just, beautiful. You see it in pictures and you think, it can't look like that, but it does. It's really great. So where else did you go?
So we did that. We also stopped at the deer farm and we got to feed deer, which was super fun. I had one almost eat my shirt. It really tried. It was really, really fun. And then we also found an adventure course. Now, both my husband and I are super adventurous. This was a little out of our element because it's zip lining. We've both been zip lining. It's fun. But this adventure course is extreme in that you're responsible for clipping yourself in and out of the zip line. So we were both very nervous, but it was so much fun. The little bit that we did. We weren't brave enough to finish all 3 courses, but we had fun doing the Flagstaff Extreme Adventure, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, you're a lot braver than me. I wouldn't be doing that, but I definitely, recommend it to anyone else who would like to. Where'd you go next?
And then we also went through those 5 days to Navajo Nation. We ended up going to Navajo Nation's Monument Park. We didn't know anything about Navajo Nation. We just knew that it was a reservation and they had tours and stuff. So when we got there, they were offering tours. One, you could do the Grand Loop through Monument Nation, or you could go on the back roads with your tour guide to see a lot more of it. So we opted for that one. And we saw this woman making the quilts.
Yeah.
It was so cool watching her do it with, I think it was sheep's wool, and she was spinning it. And it was just a very different experience to be able to see that. We also got to see wild horses, which again reminded me of my childhood, because in South Africa, in a place called Kaapshoop, right near Nelspruit, they have wild horses. So it tied a lot of like what I grew up with. It was just so reminding me of home a lot. And then we also stumbled on our way back from Navajo Nation. We saw a sign saying American Monument, and my husband drove past it at first, but I made him turn around because they were these murals painted in an abandoned gas station that I wanted pictures of. So I got that, and then I told him, no, we need to go see this monument. And I'm so glad we did, because it was the Native American, I'm sure you've seen it, the documentations on it, but they're dwellings in the cliffside.
Yes.
So that's in Arizona as well. It's a lesser known one. I think the main one, if I remember correctly, is in like Utah or Idaho. So it was amazing to see that. And it was a short 1 mile walk. And because we were visiting so many national parks, I ended up getting a national park passport.
I was about to ask you if you did that. Yes,
I did.
So you got stamped. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got all my stamps. It was awesome. And that one also was part of the national like stamp. So I ended up getting one for that national monument. And then, that was the Grand Canyon part.
So for everyone who's listening or watching on the YouTube side, the podcast side, I'll put links in so that way you can learn how to get your, park passports and things like that. So definitely, there will be definite resources available. So as you're listening, just kind of look below and you'll find it. So, okay, keep going. Where'd you go next?
So after the Grand Canyon, we were traveling to Zion National Park because we really wanted to go see that. And on the way, we found a paleontologist site. So we got to go see a whole bunch of skulls from the evolution of Triceratops. And this paleontologist site had just discovered, I believe, 5 more Triceratops skulls all together. in the
Wow.
desert. Yeah, which is really, really unheard of, but it proved that they hunted together or they ate together before they went on their way.
So do they know, or do they talk about why it was grouped together in terms of what did they die together, or what was the story?
Yeah, so this group did die together. They don't know why they died. I think it was like when the meteor actually hit, but they were hunting
Wow.
together, which was amazing. And 3 of the skulls in this little museum was found in that area, which was pretty cool. And then we also went to Horseshoe Lake.
Yep.
That was amazing. So we walked down to Horseshoe Lake and got to see that. We also found a cave museum on the way to Zion.
Cool.
Yeah, it used to be a bar for the famous actors and actresses to get out of the Arizona heat during when they were making Western movies. And in Navajo Nation's Monument Valley, we actually stood where John Wayne stood with the horse in one of his Western movies. So it was interesting to see a lot of the Western history carry through into Utah, which we were heading to.
I don't know the name of the hotel. I'll have to look it up because I know my daughter and I traveled that direction many years ago. But we stayed at a hotel, which was also a place that was known for being used in movies. I don't know if you came across that or not, but for everyone who's listening, I will look that up and also put that link down below. So continue on. Where'd you go next?
Yeah, so we ended up going through Zion National Park. We saw bison. There's a range or a ranch right outside of Zion that had like bison. So that was our first taste of the bison. It was amazing. So we ended up driving through Zion National Park to get down. We also saw the bighorn sheep. I think that's the name of the animal. That was pretty cool. We saw a female. And then we drove through like these huge tunnels. If you have never been to Zion, when you go on the scenic drive, there is the longest tunnel I've ever been in, but it is amazing because in the rock side, as you're driving through, they have like these huge windows that open up for a split second on the scenery as you're going. So it's like dark, huge rock window, and then you go back into the darkness. So it was super breathtaking just seeing it. And then we stayed at Flanagan's Inn, but one of the things that we did was we booked 2 hikes with a company. I forget the name and it escapes me. Amazing company though, where you can go on a guided hike, and because of essentially COVID, it was just my husband and I with the guide. So it was a personalized hike, which was phenomenal. The first day, so we were supposed to do 2 days in Zion, but because the month before there was a flash flood that went through the Narrows, they weren't taking us in the Narrows, which is completely understandable. So instead, they switched it for Bryce National Park. So we got to do
Nice.
Bryce. That was breathtaking. It felt like a fairyland that we were hiking through. And we went super early. So we went before sunrise. So as we were hiking not in the heat of the day, and we concluded the hike at 11. And then we got to drive around and see a lot more of the spots within Zion, which was awesome. And then our guide was taking pictures of us like playing with the chipmunks and the squirrels and hiking, and she was taking video and stuff. So it was really nice having her there. And then they also provide lunch, so they cater to your lunch needs. My husband and I recently had gone gluten-free. usually on hikes you do sandwiches and stuff, but they were doing a lot of salads, and it was like a mango salad that she made that first day. It was a phenomenal salad. It was so good. And then the second day we hiked in Zion. Also, we got up before the sunrise. We got into Zion on a shuttle. I think they did away with having to book the shuttle ahead of time, because we were worried about that and going back and forth with the company on where do we meet the guide. But both days they had actually organized her to pick us up from Flanagan's Inn, which was really, really awesome. And she met us with coffee. So I'm a very coffee drinker in the morning. If I don't have it, I'm miserable. So it's little things like that that just makes it so much better. And the great thing about going with the guide is you don't have to know the area, nor do you have to plan it.
Yes, and I love that. I know, going back to the Portugal trip that I just came off of, we even though we were doing our own walking, we came across these tuk-tuk tours, which are these little, for those that don't know, they can be electric or not, little cars. And we had guides that were native to Portugal that just were so excited about the stories that they could tell and the sites that they could, show us. And it makes, looking at a building so much, more enjoyable to know the history behind it, or why is someone's picture on it, so having a guided tour just means that you're getting a backstory that you would not know if you just kind of were looking at a tree.
Yeah. And I mean, for us, we learned that we could survive in the desert. Just look for the cacti flowers and you're
good. Good to know.
And then also there's a white flower within Zion National Park that's actually very poisonous. So don't put it next to your temple. Don't do anything, because it's an hallucinogenic. So we found that out very fast. And our guide was amazing. It was the same guide both days. She had so many stories to tell us. She told us like her interaction with mountain lions, because I've always wanted to see one. It's still on my bucket list. It's not checked off yet. Just because that's what I grew up with. I'm used to wildlife. But it was amazing, like being able to discover these flowers. I actually have a picture of it if you want to see.
Yeah,
it's this flower. Don't put that next to your temple. You will hallucinate.
And not in a good way, guys. So definitely make sure if it's poisonous, you don't want to do it.
Right. So we learned like some of those things, or how to survive in the wilderness. Also about the trees, like which ones are wood fire resistant, which ones are not. So
wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of interesting things that we wouldn't necessarily have learned had we not had a guide. We would have just gone blindly. And then Flanagan's Inn was really nice. It's kind of like a spa retreat.
Oh, that is
we
nice.
were able to really relax there. It was great. And it's right outside of Zion. So if we wanted to walk, we could. We actually saw quite a few people walking into Zion while our guide picked us up and drove us in. And then after that, we went to Salt Lake City for one night just to spend the night, because from Zion all the way to Yellowstone would have been about an 8 to 9 hour drive. And we didn't want to rush it. We wanted to enjoy the scenery. We saw a lot of cows and horses. I think I am cows and horsed out on road trips. There are so many. But it was really cool just to see how the geography as we drove through changes so much.
It really does.
Yeah, like for example, with Arizona, we thought, oh, it's desert. No, there's a lot of forest, which you wouldn't think. Utah was very green and very pasture like. Idaho, from the little that we saw, because we drove through a huge storm system, so half the day it was very, very, very dark. And then when we got out of that storm system, we ended up in a smoke-filled sky, because there's a lot of fires happening all across the West Coast, not just in California. So we did see a bit of the smoke, but on our way to Yellowstone, after we spent the night in Salt Lake City, we found another bear retreat.
Before you could tell us about the bear retreat, how was it in Salt Lake City?
It was very smoky. They had a fire there. And we didn't really do anything in Salt Lake City. It was very city-like, which to us, we were like, oh no, we just came from the wilderness back into city life. Yeah, it was very interesting.
So my husband, sort of like a shock to the system.
It was a little bit, yeah, it was. But the cool thing is, the whole time we were driving, one, we avoided the crowds because it was just when the children were going back to school. So we were right at the end of the season, because we went 2 weeks before the end of August. So a lot of the kids were back into school, and we avoided a lot of the tourist crowds, which was amazing that we didn't have to do that.
So after Salt Lake City, you said you found another bear excursion.
We did. So it was also a drive-through with a lot of bears. It was a lot of bears. It was cool because we ended up taking a tour where you could go feed the bears, and they explained, in Yellowstone, you used to be able to do this, you can't do this anymore, which I had no idea about, because I was always told, do not feed the wild animals. It's their territory. Exactly. So they help teach, and I'll show you a picture of one. So we were in like this little van, and we would be tossing them jerky or bread. So there's a little bear standing up asking for food. They're very smart.
Yes,
very,
but
very
keep in mind, everyone, as cute as this one was, it's wild.
Yes, do not stick your hand out.
No.
They will get you. They also had some deer and elk and moose were there too, which was cool, because my husband, on his bucket list, was to see moose. So we did see moose in this like little sanctuary that they have. And then after that, we crossed into Wyoming, and it honestly felt like a hand. So when we were in Idaho, driving through the storm, once we got out of the storm, it was very smoky and smoke filled. It was like a hand stopped it right at Yellowstone, because the whole time we were there, it rained, which was great for some things, but I'll tell you why it wasn't so great. So
you're camping.
Yes. Yellowstone. We arrived in Yellowstone. It was beautiful. Everything was green. We decided to camp at Madison, and we had trekked our 2-bedroom tent. It's a 10-person tent with us, which is amazing. So the first night we set up our tent, everything was great. We slept in the tent. I woke up at 5 a.m. because the rain was hitting our tent, but it didn't sound like rain. It sounded like a bear was walking around our tent. So I freaked out a little bit because we're in bear country. But it wasn't, it was just the rain hitting, which sounded like something was rubbing against it. Again, we were completely safe. It's very important because Yellowstone is very strict on what you can have in your tent. So anything with a scent or any food stuff, it has to go in the bear locker. And me being crazy, while I was in Yellowstone, I found a book about the bear attacks that are very detailed in, it actually has the reports that it gives you. So I learned a lot of what not to do to avoid a bear attack, which is great.
That will be a whole nother episode, guys.
Yep. I will tell you where not to camp. So we did that. And then the first night, once we had our tent set up, we drove a little bit. We went into Hayden Valley and we got to see 3 grizzly bears right off the bat. They were running and frolicking across the way 300 feet from us, which I felt super safe. So you do need binoculars or a scope to see them. You can see them move around, but not in detail. We also saw a lot of elk and a lot of bison in Hayden Valley. So that was amazing. First night, great. Second night, we got up and we decided to go to the Grand Teton National Park. And we went there. We found this beautiful church in Grand Teton that we found. They had stained glass. It was all wood. It's really beautiful. We also saw moose in the wild, and we saw a bald eagle, which was phenomenal. And we also saw the Mormon Row and a few other spots in Grand Teton. So we were there the whole day. And then we came back into Yellowstone and we saw Old Faithful blow up, which was cool. And then we had dinner at the Old Faithful Inn. We also got to see the Continental Divide as we drove between Grand Teton and Yellowstone. They have like these huge signs, Continental Divide. So that was awesome. So that was pretty much our second day seeing all of this. And then we get back to our tent. And our tent didn't have a leak, but it did have a condensation issue. So we came back to a pool in our tent. And I'm good with the cold, but the cold with dripping water, I'm not good with. So we ended up sleeping in the car that night. And the next morning, between my husband and I, we got 1 hour of sleep.
Oh, wow.
So we woke up at 4 a.m. miserable, and we drove into West Yellowstone and booked a Best Western. Because we were like, we cannot do this for another night. Then when we drove back, we were supposed to go to Lamar Valley that day, but we decided, no, let's delay it for the last day because it's on our way out to the hotel right near the airport that we were going to fly out of. So we ended up breaking down our tent and donating it to the Yellowstone Park. It's a great tent for summer, not for wet weather. So that's essentially what we did. They were super appreciative to get it. If you ever do have any equipment, I do highly encourage that you do donate it to the national parks because they do use it.
That's great.
And put
That's
it to
great.
good use.
Yeah.
So we also saw that day, the day we went to Grand Teton, we saw 3 black bear. Yes, we saw 3 black bear. Actually, I think we saw 5. We saw 3 in the morning, then we saw a baby on the cliff, and then we saw the other adult coming down foraging. And we had the river separating us from the cliff that she was on, which was like, oh, it was amazing. So for those that are worried about a bison jam, that's nothing compared to a bear jam.
Really?
A bear jam happened while we were trying to get to the Best Western at the end of the day, because we went into it all the geysers. every single geyser. There is right by the Grand Prismatic, there's like a dirt road that goes off. If you go down that one, there is more geysers that blow, and they, in our personal opinion, are better than Old Faithful, because the one that we saw, it only blows once a day. Technically it blows twice a day, but it happens like in the middle of the night when everyone's not in that country. And there's like a pool of water around it, and it trickles, and that's when you know it's getting ready to blow, is when that water starts trickling down. And then when it blows for a good 10 to 15 minutes. And while we were watching that one, there was another one blowing right behind it. So we got to see both at the same time.
Do you know the reason why these geysers are blowing? Do you know the story of what's underneath?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a volcano.
Yeah, exactly. So, as much as it's very exciting to be there, I hope that that it doesn't really blow for many, many years.
I agree with you. So I actually have an irrational fear of volcanoes. I did not focus on the fact that I was in volcano.
Exactly. So
yeah, my husband kept trying to tease me about that, and I was like, nope, we're not focusing on that right now. It's a pretty geyser. That's it.
So then you're almost at the end of your trip. So
Yes.
How did it wrap up?
Amazingly. So we got to see, we drove at the crack of dawn, and it was a very hairy drive because the fog was really low and eerie, and we were driving in pitch black darkness. So we got to see an elk on the side of the road, like a horror movie. It gave me such a fright. We also got to see 2 hares, and then a fox was running along the car with us for a little bit. We were driving like 10 to 50 miles an hour on this road. We had to go the long way because the regular way to Lamar Valley was closed. I guess it was damaged by like recent rains or something, so they had closed it down. So it took us 2.5 hours to get to Lamar. There was a bit of a rock slide, so my husband climbed out of the car to move the rocks off, which I got a picture of him doing that. And then when we got to Lamar Valley, we saw the 18 pack of wolves that is known for that area.
Wow.
A grizzly was walking right behind them. So we got to see a grizzly. And then not even a mile down the road, we saw a grizzly on a kill.
Wow.
So it ended phenomenally. It was amazing. Of course, we saw bison. So where the grizzly was on the kill, right next to us in the cars was bison. Yeah, that essentially was the highlight, and that ended our trip. We stayed at a Hilton Garden Hotel right before we flew out. Yep. And came back, and then we did a mini trip to Washington after it. But the 2 weeks, I feel, doing from what they call the Grand Staircase, we didn't even know we did the Grand Staircase, but we did, we were told. So going from the Grand Canyon all the way through to Yellowstone, 2 weeks was plenty of time for what we managed to see and do.
That's great. That your story is phenomenal. I cannot wait for to see the pictures and to share more. Everyone who's listening, I will have links below so that way you can kind of explore. Definitely, reach out to me. And then, what's your next adventure, Chantal?
Oh, what are we not doing? So come Christmas time, I'm going up to Oregon to spend time with my mom. She's in Roseburg. and there's a lot to do in Roseburg. They also have a wildlife safari. So I keep finding all these wildlife safari places in the US.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do another show to talk about, exploring up there as well. So, any last minute thoughts that you want to share with everyone?
No, just if you're doing a road trip, have a rough idea of where you're flying in and what hotels you are staying at. Otherwise, don't plan. Just go with the flow, because that's really going to be able to enrich your traveling experience, and you will discover so much that you didn't think you would. There's just so much to do.
There is, and the United States has such a variety of places to explore. So definitely, everyone, reach out to me so I can help you with your travel insurance and give you some tips to help you on your road trip. And there are links that I have for discount travel if you want to use them. But again, it's all about exploring and having fun, because the country's wide open and we have beaches, we have mountains, we have everything in between. So I know that when my daughter and I went to Portugal, as magical as Portugal was, and we definitely loved it, she said to me, Mom, the United States has so many great beaches too, and so many different sites that we haven't seen. So, again, just to get in your car and go. So thank you so much, Chantal.
Thank you.